Van Gogh is one of the greatest artists in the history of painting, whose extraordinary talent overcame all physical and mental deficiencies. All his life was filled with wounds and crises, from health issues to psychological instability. This great master occasionally fell into deep depression, and it seemed that this would weigh heavily on his life and artistic career. However, amidst the darkness of his life, Van Gogh created a brilliant artistic world, where each brushstroke and each patch of color contained a powerful vitality. He introduced a groundbreaking painting style, using bold, even intense colors to express his deep emotions. With a thirst for creativity, this man transformed pain into art, creating timeless masterpieces. Welcome to MYSTORY. In this story, we will travel back in time to the 1800s to explore the life and the unsolved mysteries of Vincent van Gogh, one of the most talented masters humanity has ever produced. Vincent Willem van Gogh was one of the most famous painters of the 19th century. He was born in the village of Groot Zundert in the Netherlands on March 30, 1853. Van Gogh was born into a religious family, with his father being a Protestant minister. Initially, Van Gogh did not choose a creative path, but began his career in business at Koepel & Sai, a company specializing in paintings and collectibles based in The Hague. During his time there, he was exposed to many European artworks, but he struggled to maintain the job and eventually left. Van Gogh then became a missionary in a mining area in Belgium, where he experienced the harsh and impoverished life of the working class. These experiences had a profound influence on his later artistic style. In 1880, after many personal setbacks and failures in various jobs, Van Gogh decided to pursue art. He was self-taught, learning about fine art through paintings and books, while also receiving support from his brother Theo van Gogh, who helped him both financially and emotionally. Though Van Gogh's life was a series of painful and difficult events, the bond between him and his brother was a crucial part of what kept Van Gogh going in his artistic journey. In 1890, after a long struggle with mental illness, Van Gogh passed away at the age of 37, leaving behind more than 2,100 works, including oil paintings, sketches, and drawings. With such a vast number of works, identifying Van Gogh's style is a challenging task. Initially, Van Gogh's style was influenced by realism, with paintings depicting rural life and the working class. He learned from the works of Jean-François Millet and Gustave Courbet, famous realist painters known for their works on labor life. Alongside this, Van Gogh often used a dark color palette in his paintings to vividly portray the hardships faced by the working class. One of his well-known early works is The Potato Eaters, 1885. The painting depicts the poor life of farmers, with brown and black tones dominating the scene, creating a somber and gloomy atmosphere. In 1886, Van Gogh moved to Paris, where he met several Impressionist painters such as Claude Monet, Paul Gauguin, and Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. This fresh influence drastically changed his artistic style. Rather than using dark tones as before, Van Gogh began to express light and color in his works. Influenced by the Impressionist and Post-Impressionist movements, during this period, Van Gogh also explored Japanese art and ukiyo-e prints. This became a crucial element in shaping his unique style. Moreover, Van Gogh learned to organize space and incorporate intricate details from Japanese art into his own paintings. Not stopping there, Van Gogh moved to Arles in the south of France, where he entered the most productive and creative phase of his career. At this stage, his style became more personal, with strong emotional lines and expressions of inner moods, shown through swirling, thick, and repetitive brushstrokes, creating a dynamic effect. Throughout his creative life, Van Gogh produced around 2,100 works, including more than 860 oil paintings, nearly 1,300 drawings, sketches, and watercolors. Starry Night, Sunflowers, Wheat Field with Crows, and Portrait of Dr. Gachet are iconic examples of expressive art and the emotionally charged use of color that Van Gogh masterfully created. Van Gogh's legacy is not only found in the works he left behind, but also in his influence on later art movements. Although he sold only a few paintings during his lifetime, after his death he was recognized as one of the greatest painters in the world. His works became a source of inspiration for expressionist and abstract artists. Laying the foundation for 20th century art movements. Today, Van Gogh's paintings are displayed in leading art museums around the world, such as the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam and the Museum of Modern Art in New York. The Dutch master proved that art is not only a form of expression, but also a means of understanding oneself and the world around us. Throughout his artistic career, Van Gogh left behind many impressive works of art. Among them are paintings that have a mysterious color palette, sparking curiosity and fascination in viewers, such as his famous Sunflower series. There wouldn't be much to say about the painting if the sunflowers in Van Gogh's work didn't appear so different from the typical sunflowers. In the past, people often believed that Van Gogh had stylized the sunflowers to make them unique, or some suggested that this difference reflected his mental instability during the time he created the painting. However, recent botanical studies have revealed another interesting fact. The sunflowers in Van Gogh's paintings resemble genetically mutated sunflowers. From this, a theory emerged suggesting that flower growers may have deliberately kept these uniquely beautiful flowers to sell to artists, including Van Gogh. Nevertheless, scientists still don't fully understand what kind of mutation could create the special features seen in the sunflowers' paintings. One notable feature, the greenish center of the flowers, adds an extra layer of uniqueness and mystery to his works, and has left scientists puzzled. In addition to the sunflowers, Van Gogh's The Starry Night is another painting filled with fascinating and mysterious elements. This is one of the most famous masterpieces by the Dutch artist, and a quintessential example of Western painting. Created in June 1889, this oil painting is currently on display at the Museum of Modern Art in Manhattan, New York City. Created in June 1889, this oil painting is currently on display at the Museum of Modern Art in Manhattan, New York City, and is valued at approximately $900 million. The painting depicts a brilliant and mysterious starry sky above a village in France. However, behind this enchanting scene lies a sad story about the life of the talented artist. The context for The Starry Night was when Van Gogh was going through the final days of his life, marked by tragic mental struggles. He had voluntarily admitted himself to a mental hospital in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, unable to cope with his increasingly severe mental collapse. In a letter to his brother Theo, Van Gogh described a starry sky near dawn that he had observed through the east-facing window of his hospital room with a particularly prominent star to create the mysterious aura of the night sky. He removed the iron bars from the scene and painted an endless sky from memory, giving rise to one of the most deeply personal works of his soul. For Van Gogh, The Starry Night was an embodiment of his eternal dreams. He once wrote, "Looking at the stars always makes me dream. I wonder why we can't touch the little dots of light in the sky. Why can't they be as easily reached as when we travel to Tarascon or Rouen? We must trade life for death to reach the place of the stars." In the foreground of the painting is a cypress tree, a symbol often associated with cemeteries and death. This could be a metaphor for his obsession with the finiteness of life, and a reflection of Van Gogh's state of mind at the time. Just 1 year after completing the painting, Van Gogh passed away, ending his life in solitude and pain, as an artist deeply troubled by the world around him. In 2001, Researcher Paul Wolfe suggested that Van Gogh's preference for yellow in the Starry Night might have been influenced by digitalis, a medication used to treat epilepsy, which Van Gogh was taking during that period. High doses of the drug can cause patients to see yellow spots around objects. This could partially explain the unique color palette and the shimmering, almost magical effect of the stars in the painting. An interesting fact that few people notice is that there are actually two Starry Night paintings. Van Gogh first painted a starry night scene in 1888 with the backdrop of the Rhone River, creating Starry Night over the Rhone. Although this is also a special work, the Starry Night he painted in the hospital in 1889 is the more famous of the two. Van Gogh considered this painting a failure in terms of art because he believed it was too far removed from reality. In 1985, art historian Albert Boehm from the University of California made an intriguing discovery about the painting. He compared the sky in the painting to the real sky on June 1, 1889, as reconstructed by an astronomical chart, and realized that Van Gogh had actually painted Venus, the brightest planet after the moon in the solar system. Along with Venus, other stars such as the Pleiades, Pegasus, and Aquarius can be seen, although Van Gogh himself likely wasn't aware of this. The Starry Night also serves as a testament to Van Gogh's keen sensitivity to the movement of light, a quality that later scientists and artists would acknowledge. The painting evokes a sense of shimmering light and movement, explained by how the brain perceives strong contrast between colors on the canvas. When the eye sees colors with different brightness levels, the brain distinguishes them without blending, creating the effect of flickering light. A study by scientist Natalia St. Clair further explained the scientific aspect of this work. She suggested that the Starry Night accurately depicts the chaos found in nature. This only further underscores Van Gogh's brilliance in transforming a mental image of the night sky into an immortal artwork that transcends personal emotions and enters the realm of natural science. The stars in the Starry Night will forever be symbols of the desire to transcend reality, to seek light and hope in the troubled mind of a genius. The painting has transcended the boundaries of time and space, continuing to inspire and invite viewers to explore its deeper meanings. Where the stars flicker, it is not just the night sky but Van Gogh's soul, forever reaching towards the distant eternal light. Aside from his mysterious and enigmatic artworks, the life of the Dutch painter also holds an incredibly puzzling story, the incident in which he lost his ear. How many theories have been proposed to explain this event? On December 23, 1888, in a fit of rage, Van Gogh lost control and rushed toward his housemate, fellow artist Paul Gauguin, holding a razor. Fortunately, he stopped himself before any violence occurred. However, this outburst left him filled with remorse, and that same night, he cut off his own ear. Later, Van Gogh went to a brothel and handed the severed ear to a prostitute. She subsequently reported the incident to the police, who promptly arrived at Van Gogh's home to provide medical assistance, preventing severe blood loss. This is the most widely known version of the story. However, another theory suggests that it was Gauguin, skilled in fencing, who cut off Van Gogh's ear during their heated argument. After the incident, the two allegedly agreed to remain silent. Gauguin wanted to avoid prosecution, while Van Gogh sought to preserve their precious friendship. Yet, once things settled, Gauguin decided to leave. His departure left a profound void in Van Gogh's life, plunging him into psychological distress and instability, ultimately leading to his admission to a mental asylum. Beyond the mystery of his severed ear, Van Gogh is also believed to have had vision problems. While it may sound unlikely, several theories suggest that Van Gogh could have been colorblind, and this condition may have influenced his unique artistic style. The idea that he suffered from some form of colorblindness has intrigued many researchers and modern artists. Some hypotheses propose that Van Gogh may have had red-green color blindness, a common type that makes it difficult to distinguish between shades of green and red. In fact, many of his famous works, such as The Starry Night and Sunflowers, are dominated by bold yellows, blues, and earthy tones. These are high-contrast colors that remain easily distinguishable even for those with red-green color deficiency. The theory of Van Gogh's color blindness is further supported by his unconventional use of color. Rather than following traditional color schemes, he seemed to select hues based on emotion and intuition, creating a distinct, vibrant, yet harmonious palette. Researchers note that he frequently used complementary color pairs, such as blue and yellow or red and green, producing striking, almost surreal visual effects. This could have been his way of compensating for the colors his eyes could not perceive clearly. Modern experimental research has lent credence to this theory. Some scientists have recreated Van Gogh's works from the perspective of red-green colorblind viewers and found that, even under this lens, his paintings retained their emotional power and visual appeal. This suggests that his potential color deficiency was not a hindrance to his creativity, but rather a factor that pushed him beyond conventional artistic boundaries. As a result, the warm, vivid tones in his works continue to resonate deeply with audiences. Although the theory of Van Gogh's colorblindness has never been definitively proven, it offers fresh insights into his extraordinary artistic style. Beyond his strange artworks and the speculation about his colorblindness, the Dutch master is also believed to have foreseen his own death when he painted Wheatfield with Crows. Completed in July 1890 while living in Auvers-sur-Oise, France, this painting emerged during the final, deeply troubled phase of Van Gogh's life. Despite finding refuge and support from Dr. Gachet, he remained plagued by mental instability. He felt lost, lonely, and directionless. In Wheatfield with Crows, Van Gogh depicted a vast golden wheatfield beneath a stormy, dark sky, evoking a sense of foreboding. A murder of crows scatters across the horizon like omens of death, while a dead-end path symbolizes confusion and despair. The bold brushstrokes and stark contrasts mirror his inner turmoil. Many consider this his final painting, a haunting symbol of his tormented soul and his fierce struggle with inner darkness. Painted in oil, Wheatfield with Crows showcases Van Gogh's signature vivid colors and emotional brushwork. The stark contrast between the golden wheat, the dark sky, and the reddish-brown path creates a scene that is both dynamic and ominous. While interpretations vary, the painting is undeniably linked to Van Gogh's tragic end. According to Daily Art, its elements reflect his emotional turmoil. It's not just a landscape but a manifestation of his psyche. The looming sky mirrors his depression, with deep blues hinting at an approaching storm, symbolizing death. The crows, often associated with doom in literature and film, reinforce the sense of finality. The wheatfield itself resembles the outskirts of Auvers-sur-Oise, where Van Gogh spent his last days, and where he allegedly shot himself. This connection fuels the belief that Wheatfield with Crows was his suicide note in visual form. Van Gogh's final days were marked by sorrow and suffering. Though mentally and physically exhausted, he painted feverishly, driven by passion and a desperate need for recognition. He often wandered the fields around Auvers, drawing inspiration from nature. Wheatfield with Crows was born from these solitary walks. On July 28, 1890, Van Gogh died in his room at Auberge-Revue. His funeral was held the next afternoon. His coffin was surrounded by his final paintings, sunflowers, and his artist's tools, a silent tribute to his life's work. As the sun set, A small procession carried his body to a hillside cemetery in Overs. His brother Theo wept uncontrollably. Van Gogh was buried in a simple grave, mourned by those who admired his honesty and genius. Yet his death remains shrouded in mystery. The long-held belief is that Van Gogh shot himself in the chest in a wheat field. However, no gun was ever found, and there were no witnesses. The bullet missed vital organs, allowing him to stagger back to his inn, where he died 29 hours later. Yet questions linger. Why would he bring his painting supplies if he intended suicide? Why no mention in his letters? And how did a penniless artist obtain a gun? Some scholars, like Stephen Nafe and Gregory White Smith, propose an alternative theory. Van Gogh was accidentally shot by 16-year-old René Secretin, a local troublemaker who taunted him. Van Gogh, who saw death as release, may have protected the boy by claiming suicide. This would explain the missing gun and his cryptic last words? Yes, I believe so. A scientific theory suggests Van Gogh was slowly poisoned by carbon monoxide and heavy metals from gas lamps, which he used for nighttime painting. Dutch chemist René van Slooten argues that prolonged exposure caused his mental decline, seizures, and suicidal tendencies, symptoms consistent with heavy metal toxicity. Vincent van Gogh's life was as vivid and turbulent as his art. In just 37 years, he created masterpieces that continue to captivate the world. Yet his tragic demise, whether by suicide, accident, or poisoning, remains an enigma. His legacy endures, a testament to a tormented genius who painted his soul onto canvas, leaving behind beauty born from suffering.